Do we want 4 alphas fighting until death in our honor? Absolutely. In the claiming games, all bets are off. Even when it comes to love and loathing, Maya has plenty of secrets, but none as many as those hidden within the palace walls. The Bonds of Hate by Nola Heart is a dark omegaverse where 4 alphas hate the omega they must claim, and she feels the exact same way. Hello bookish readers, my name is Medallio and welcome to my channel, Bookish Bedroom Reviews with Medallio, where I review indie romance books with giggles and honest commentary. Today, I am reviewing an omegaverse romance. It's also why choose reverse harem, my favorite, called Bonds of Hate by Nola Heart. This is my first time reading a book by Heart. It won't be my last because I am going to read the second book because the cliffhanger, it killed me. So I was like, I need more. But I do have mixed feelings about this read, and we'll get into that later on in the review. If you were an omega going through your heat, what is a favorite item that you would want in your nest? So for me, I would want something that's water resistant, like a blanket or a sheet cover, just something that's gonna absorb all the liquids going on in the nest. You know what I mean? But let me know what you would choose as your favorite item in your nest. Drop a comment. So Bonds of Hate is basically, it centers around Maya. She's an omega. The story starts with Maya courting the House of Corellian's royal prince, Logan, and his pack. And his pack consists of Logan, Ares, Poe, and Killian. And she's there being escorted by her mother, Charlotte, at this time. And everything's going well. And she's also acknowledged the fact that she knows that Logan is her scent match. We don't really know how they come about to understand this. We just know that at this point in time, she's well aware of it. So Logan decides to test how willing she is to be the pack omega, and he basically has her get down on her knees, and he gives her like an intimacy type of test. And this humiliation is just too much for her to bear, and she decides to reject the mating contract, and she runs out of the palace and she disappears for a year. And now a year later, Maya is mysteriously turning up on the royal palace doorstep, and she's just like, I need this mating contract. I'll do anything to stay safe. You know, like Logan, he hasn't forgotten the humiliation that she basically left him with when she ran out of the mating contract. So this time around, of course, he's like, she is my scent match, so I can't just deny her, you know, but I can play with her, and I can make her think that she's going to be this Pax Omega and actually end up not being the Pac Omega at all. So he provides her with this ridiculous mating contract, and she's just like, I'll do anything.
Is this a contract?
But like everything is a test. So she's just like, okay, if I agree to this, what does that mean for me? And she's like, this is a test. I know Logan. Apparently she knows him really well. But I mean, she only spent like a couple of weeks with him a year before. So, but she seems to know him very well. So she signs this contract. But I mean, she's expecting the palace to keep her safe. And she's expecting like this big, huge palace to just encase all the secrets that she holds dear to her chest. Before I get into the character analysis, I do want to say that one of the things that I did like about this book is that the author utilized these characters really, really well. She actually, I don't know her pronouns, so I'll say they, or just say her name, Heart. She utilized the characters in a way that drove the plot, and I really appreciated that in the writing. So we have Maya. She's an omega. She has purple hair, which is actually something that is like etching out of like the omega sphere. Like it's like an ancient thing that the omegas used to have, and she seems to have this feature. It's her best feature is what she says. But Maya basically has been trained to be this perfect omega, but she also has the natural skills to do so. However, she is sassy, stubborn, and desperate. I do think that it was interesting that her scent was champagne and cherries with a dollop of cream. Logan. Logan is the pack alpha. He is unpredictable, very moody. I don't really think he's impulsive, but he's also stubborn. I think that he basically has all of the attributes of an alpha in an omegaverse. And especially with his unpredictableness. He also has temper tantrums, but they're like aggressive temper tantrums. But Logan smells like clove. I do like the fact that he has an older brother in the book named Nikolai, and I loved Nikolai. He's not in the pack, but I hope that we get a spin-off with him and his Omega Saffron, because I liked her too. Especially because Logan, he describes Saffron as the alpha in the relationship, and I think that would be an interesting dynamic to read about. Aries. He's an alpha in Logan's pack. He is the one that Maya gravitates towards. She feels calmer when she's around him. It's like his scent calms her down and makes her feel safe. He seems to be the only one that she gravitates towards in terms of safety, and he seems to also pick on the fact that she needs to feel safe in order to relax, as opposed to everybody else in the pack that doesn't really treat her that way. I do think that he's also falling first for her, and he shows her like those classic alpha. He shows her like the classic alpha attitude where he's just like wants to protect her. He wants to make sure she's safe. He wants to feed her. I think it's classic in the Omegaverse, but we hadn't gotten that yet in the story from her main alpha, Logan, so I'm glad that we got that from Aries. And Aries smells like chocolate bourbon with a sprinkle of bacon. Killian. He's the beta in the pack, or so we think. He is unlikable. I didn't like him. I'm not sure if I do. He's very brash, and he just doesn't treat Maya very well. But we find out more at the end. You know, he's unlikable until the end, and then you find out everything basically about him, or more or less. But, you know, the jury's still out on him. He smells like lilacs and baby powder. Poe is the assassin of the group. That's how he's described, but honestly, there are moments where he shows vulnerability to Maya, like the scene when they're in Logan's deceased mother's chambers, in the Queen's chambers, where he tells her something that's very vulnerable and very unexpected. And then there's also parts where he comforts her, and he's like the least likely person to comfort her, but when he does, I don't know, it just makes me swoon for him. You know, he's also very mysterious. We don't really know a lot about him besides like those vulnerable moments that he's shared, but I hope that we get to see more of that developing relationship between he and Maya. I think that he does have feelings for her, even though he's been trying to hide them. But Poe smells like the ocean with a little bit of sea salt. So the conflict in this story annoyed me because it's a classic trope, and you'll see what I mean. So Maya's re-entry is basically what the conflict is centered around. She re-enters back into society after 1 year of being tortured, and no one knows what happened to her. But she's seeking asylum with the palace because she thinks, oh, this is where I can be safe. I think that the biggest annoyance is the trope.
The miscommunication trope.
Okay, so she was tortured for a year. She's asked point blank when she comes back into the palace, what happened to you? Where have you been? Why did you reject us? You know, it's been a whole year, and her existence was wiped off the map for a whole year. Girl, tell them. I was just like, if you had just told them what happened to you, even bits and pieces of what you could stomach, they would have been able to protect you a lot better. I mean, she didn't know that the Inquisitor was the guy that abducted her. She didn't know that. She didn't know him as the Inquisitor. She knew him as the Doctor and with his real name. But she would have recognized him, and she would have been able to tell them, hey, this is the guy. And then they would have been able to build some type of case to help her and to also, you know, help Logan because of the Inquisitor. But that's not what happened. I just think that we need to stop doing the miscommunication trope. I'm sorry about the sound. But I'm tired of it. I think that it wouldn't have changed the story at all. I honestly think it would have made the story better, and it would have given us a different take on an omegaverse that I thought we were going to get. Another conflict is Logan's older brother Anders' murder. And the conflict there is not the fact that he was murdered, but the fact that we know who did it. And that basically when the story is unfolding, we're trying to figure out how to cover it up. So I gave this 3 peppers, and I think that there was tension, there was kissing, there were open door smack scenes. That was a bird, sorry. But it was just very few smack scenes, and it was a slow burn. I think that giving this 3 peppers is generous because there was a lot of teasing, and I think that was on purpose, to like build everything up, because we got a full-on smack scene, we got 2 at the end, but I think it was just too much teasing. At some point, I was just like finding myself speed reading through certain parts of the book so I could get to more spice, because it was just lagging in that aspect. And for it to be an omegaverse with all of these hormones and pheromones, I was surprised that I had to look for more smack scenes. I was craving them, and I think that, I know with how the story went, Maya, the main female character, the Omega, her constant need to resist these men because of how they're treating her. Completely understand that was the pretense, for the teasing. Like, that was the reason for the teasing, but it was just too much at some point. Like, at one point, are you just going to give in? You know what I mean? I gave this 3 stars. I thought it had a really great plot, but there were just a lot of errors. Now, I read an advanced reader copy, and I know that advanced reader copies, like I've said previously, you can find errors in them. And sometimes the authors even put it in the disclaimer that, if you find errors, let me know, because I'm still editing the book. I completely understand that. I just hope that this wasn't published the way that it is, because it had a lot of misplaced words. Like, it would make me stop and pause and have to edit in my head, or just like skip the sentence because I didn't understand what the author was trying to say. So, and there were some weird bouts of like misplaced punctuation. So I'm just saying, like, I hope this was proofread before it was published. The Bonds of Hate by Nola Heart is a good omegaverse with some different angles to it. But I do have to say that the constant teasing between Maya and the men was pretty irritating. But I do hope that we get more physical activity between, within the pack in the next book. So I did gravitate more towards her connection with Aries and Poe. I can't wait to see what transpires between them. I hated that Logan dictated how they should treat Maya and what they should be doing with her because of his pettiness toward her. I also did not like the fact that them being scent matched, why wasn't he more inherently territorial toward her, and why didn't he instinctively want to protect her and pick up on her fear when she was terrified in a lot of different instances in the story? I don't know, I just felt like that fell flat for me, and it didn't have to. I think it would have definitely sped up the physical aspect between them if Logan had just been a little bit less aggressive in his aggression. So I felt like this story could have set itself apart from other omegaverse, but it felt kind of short to me because we saw like a lot of classic tropes, like, the men being unpredictable and unemotionally intelligent, especially the leader of the pack. And then we see the girl, she comes in with all these secrets that she can't divulge, even though the secrets of them knowing the secret is detrimental to her survival, but she can't tell these guys because she wants them to keep her safe. Don't understand that. And then the men are intrigued by her. They're interested in her. So they use Smex as a tool to get closer to her and to also like exude like power and control over her. And they use teasing as a way to make her beg for it. I do recommend that you read Bonds of Hate by Nola Heart because the story really drew me in. But I was annoyed with the characters and the chapter length. The book itself is a hefty book. It's over 400 plus pages with a cliffhanger and a second book on the way. Why was it so long? I found myself zoning out in some of the chapters, and I don't mean that to say that it was written poorly. I mean to say that there were just some parts in some chapters that just didn't seem necessary, or they could have been cut down a little bit. I also found myself speed reading through some parts of the books just so I could get to the spice. Like, just a breakup of all the plot just to give me a little bit of spice. Like, you know, when you read an omegaverse reverse harem, you expect there to be spice. You know, that's what I'm saying. But I think that the author stayed true to the omega because she was always going hot and cold with these guys, and she kept going back and forth if she liked them, if she wanted them, if she didn't want them, if she hated them, if she didn't hate them. And that really annoyed me, but it stayed true to the character, and I have to give Heart that. You know, I'm an author too, and I do understand that readers are going to have things to say about my characters, my plot, etc. But that's just what you get when you decide to publish a book. You know, you get people's opinions, and they are true and raw, and it's up to you as the author if you want to entertain them or not. I don't like reading my reviews because I've had some scathing ones, and I don't like how it makes me feel mentally. And with these reviews, I am in no way bashing Heart and the story that she's created, and I really hope that it's not coming through that way. I'm giving criticism, true, but I'm really hoping that it comes across as genuine. Like, I'm genuinely hoping that this criticism, if it doesn't reach you, that's fine. If it does, I'm genuinely hoping that you take it into account and just do a proofread on your story. But I mean, you know, Heart wrote a book. She wrote a 400 plus page book. She published it. That's amazing in of itself, and it's not easy to do. And, you know, for that reason, I ask you, you know, I recommend that you read this book. Figure it out for yourself if you like it or not. I think that you'll like it. I really do. I mean, I liked it. I really did. I really wanted there to be more. I was like, where's the second book? Is it already out? I'm ready. You know, I liked it a lot. You know, there were some shortcomings that I did note, but it's not going to stop me from reading the second book. So I really do recommend this book. So that's all that I have for you for this review. Support indie authors with me. Like and subscribe for more reviews and recs just like these. This time around, I'm reviewing the second book in the Claiming Game series by Nola Heart. It is called Bonds of Pain. The first book is Bonds of Hate. I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts. Oh my gosh. So many thoughts. I am also going to give you a bit of a disclaimer that this is not going to be a nice review, and I don't like giving mean reviews. I am going to be giving a lot of criticism. And these are things that I think any author who's an indie author would probably agree with. I am also giving this less stars than I wanted to give it because of my thoughts that I'll get into later on in the review. But I don't say the things I'm going to say to bash the author. I say what I'm going to say because I feel like this book could have been written better. And I feel like the author has the potential to write better and to do better for the series. I think that's where the frustration is coming from. But these are my honest opinions. This is where we pick up where we left off in the book one. So not a lot of time has gone by. So Maya and Killian, because we know now that Killian is an Omega. It's not a spoiler because we know that's now. But she and Killian go into an unexpected heat together at the same time. And while they're trying to help each other, Logan, he can feel it through Killian and his bond that this is what's happening. He comes into the basement where they have their nests, and he decides that he's going to help them. He's going to take care of his Omegas. At the same time, Logan had been thinking about how to bond with Maya. Like, how can he bite her and also have a bond with her at the same time? Because I guess it's impossible for you to have one Omega and then bite another. I think one alpha can have one Omega. Okay, so Logan figures it out where he's already bit Killian, It's already his Omega. He commands in his alpha voice that Killian bite Maya, so that now they have a three-way connection. It's a little dim for her and Logan, but she can still feel him. But with Killian, it's big and bright. And Maya at that point is like, how could you do that to me? You took away my choice. And this was a choice that she was actually starting to lean towards. That she was actually thinking, maybe I should bond with this person because of the protections they can put in place for me. But now she's like, oh, no. Now it's on. The revenge has started. And she has decided to orchestrate revenge against them. She goes in on Poe, Ares, and Logan. I think that Ares, nothing specific happens to Ares except for her just manipulating him. Like, she uses his alpha biology against him, where she looks at him as the quintessential, the poster boy for an alpha, where yes, he's definitely going to react to her in the way an alpha should because of her omega biology. So she uses that against him. I don't think she does anything bad to him. But Poe, what she did to Poe pissed me off. Pissed me off so much. It honestly made me think of the Lords of Pain. I don't remember which book it was in that 3-part series where Story, she humiliates Wrath on that stage. And I, to this day, feel like he did not deserve that. It just brought me there. I don't know why, but it did. But back to the Bonds of Pain, she, in the first book, is told by Poe his deepest secret, that he was assaulted when he was younger by Omega women in the palace. He was very young when it happened. I don't think he was a teenager, but I think he was like on the verge of being like, just like a young adult. And I think that might be the case for his age. But it traumatized him. You know, he lives with it, and I think he beats himself up about it because he let it happen. He thinks that he let it happen. He doesn't look at it as, I was traumatized, you know, like I was in the throes of a trauma. So she files that away and decides, I'm going to use it against him in book 2. She basically lures him with an encrypted message to a part of the palace where nobody goes to. And when he gets there, he's thinking he's going to meet up with Ares. He gets there, and those Omegas are there, and they're willing and ready to start back up where they left off. And this stone cold assassin, he's this impenetrable person. He freezes, and he has a trauma response of freezing, and he lets them do it to him all over again. And then he hates himself for it. And Maya, she's just like, okay. One down. I hate her. I hate her for this. I hate her for doing that to him because he has been so open and vulnerable to her, and he didn't have to be. I think that he and Ares and Killian have shown her so many sweet, affectionate sides to them where they can be gentle, and her pushing them away every time is just unnecessary. You need an ally in this pack, and those guys could have been her ally. She wanted to come between this pack, their bond as alphas. There you go. You could have just had a relationship with these 3 men, but you decided that this whole pack needs to be broken up because of what was happened to you, and what happened to you was by Logan. Logan orchestrated everything that happened to her that was bad. He bonded with her against her will. He made these other alphas treat her badly. He is the puppet master in this entire thing. And she hates the whole except for the one poison. Which is so frustrating to me. I really hate it when one person is bad and everybody else gets punished for it. It's so frustrating. It's just ridiculous to me because they could have been her allies. She could have come clean about Thane. She could have told him about her experience there, but she didn't. And that makes me so mad too. She does assault Logan. She figures out a way to do that to him, and there's just like, I think the assault with Logan, I think that was definitely necessary. I really do. I really think so. He deserved it. End of story. But at the same time, you know, we have Dr. Sionis Thane, who is acting as the Inquisitor. I think he was in the first book too, briefly. Yes, he was. I don't think he was he considered the Inquisitor then? I don't remember. But anyway, he's the Inquisitor, and the king has appointed him to do an investigation, find out who killed Logan's brother, Anders. And we all know that it was Logan. And we find out the reason why he killed him, which is valid. But we also find out that the king of the palace is actually just it's more corrupt than we think it is. The king and Thane have teamed up together because the king has promised alphas in other regions omegas, and he can't deliver that. So he's like, how can we create more omegas? Biology, science. So basically doing experiments on omegas to find out what makes them who they are, and then using those findings to create omegas through births of beta women who are usually considered to be infertile. I think they can be infertile or fertile, it doesn't matter. But they're basically just like altering biology in that way, altering DNA. So that's what the palace is doing, and that's what they've been up to this whole time. And we find out through this science who Maya really is, and what happened to Maya was basically because of where she came from. So I think the biggest conflict here is, and forever will be, Dr. Sionis Thane. I say it like that because that is how the author constantly introduces his name into the scene. His science, him being the Inquisitor, and I think that also Logan, his conflicts that he has endlessly with his pack and with Maya, I think that's going to show itself in the next book even more. I think that now that like everything's on the table too with all of them, that maybe they can get to some type of compromise. That's what I'm hoping for. Okay, you made it this far. It's time for my thoughts. I have a lot. So I have a lot of criticisms. So instead of going right into those, I'm going to give you the things that I think were the best parts of the book. First things first, Aries, Poe, and Killian giving us their vulnerabilities, showing us their deepest concerns, showing Maya affection and gentleness was major growth. I thought it was just really nice to see that at least some characters in the book had growth. I also think that the plot with Sionis Thane was well done, and that it was consistent, because he was a great villain, and I think that the consistency of it with him popping up at the worst times really drove the plot further. I also loved the fact that Aries saw that Maya was kind of drowning in these guys and that she needed to get away. So he gave her opportunities for some, like a little bit of freedom, like tastes of freedom, where she was also safe, but she could also get away from like palace politics and having to be somewhere and do things that she didn't necessarily want to do. So I think that that's really sweet. And I think it's kind, and for this universe, it's a kindness. And I wish that Maya acknowledged it more than what we got. So here are my criticisms. So at this point, when I started writing my thoughts, I was 73% into the book, and I just had to stop and say, what the hell is happening?
What is going on here?
Maya is the worst in the pack. I think that she and Logan are neck and neck. I think that she and Logan are the same. They have very selfish reasons. They're very self-motivated, and Maya is terrible. What she did to Poe, I'll never be able to get past it. I don't think that anything she does going forward could be redeemed. I think this is the first time in a dark romance where the female, who is usually the one who's the damsel, needs to figure out how to grow and redeem herself. Here are some things that I just don't understand. Why was Dr. Sionis Thane the Inquisitor? Why was a medical doctor a detective for a murder investigation that had to do with Anders, which is Logan's brother's death? And why wasn't it questioned? And also, at the time, when he was interrogating them, I think they were getting interrogated in Logan's space. Why was Maya there? I was just like, girl, you don't need to be there. There's no reason for you to be there. You had nothing to do with this situation. Why are you there? It just didn't make sense. Especially because a doctor as a detective, like, I understand where the author's coming from because I got to the end and I figured it out, but the thing is it still made no sense. After we get to the end, it still made no sense. Like, why wasn't anybody in the pack, especially Logan? Logan had one fleeting thought where he was like, this should be the case. Why is a doctor an investigator in a murder? Exactly. But then he just like let that thought go and just answered all the questions as best that he could. But I'm like, look, this is your domain. You're a freaking prince. Tell him to leave. Tell him he needs to come up with a warrant. Tell him he needs to show you identification. Like, and Thane is like, I'm here by orders of the king. So fuck what? So what? Get out. Logan could have bodily moved this man out of the apartment and protected his pack. But nobody did this. It made no sense to me. I'm just very confused. Why does Maya keep taking blush when she knows how it affects her? Why did Maya give the men, these alphas, and Killian, blush, knowing how it would affect them? Also, Killian, he drank the blush too. Why didn't he have the same effects that Maya has if he's an Omega? Interesting. But she gives these guys blush because she's like, I could use this as a way to get them to talk, like make them feel uninhibited, make them talk and tell me all their secrets. She gives them the blush, but she decides to let them sleep so she can ransack their rooms instead of getting them to talk. She had an opportunity where Logan started mumbling things and she didn't accomplish her plan. She just let that moment go. I think that was a very terribly written scene, in my opinion, I have to say. There was a chapter where Maya and Logan, they went to the Spring Palace, which I think was beautifully described. I really could see it too. I could see like the florals and just how beautiful this palace is, because it's honestly just women. Because anything women have that they create is going to be beautiful. I just have to say. But we get to this palace, and this is where all the Omegas are. Like the royal Omegas live here. And why Maya's not living there, I don't understand. But anyway, this is like run by Logan's grandmother. And we meet his nieces, his nephews. We meet his sisters. And Maya is getting to know these people, and she's seeing that like Logan is showing a completely different side to her. And these women also have babies. And then she starts kind of spiraling and thinking at some point as an Omega, she's going to have to give Logan a baby. Or, that might be a discussion down the road. And she just has this whole chapter of trying to figure out if she should have a baby. And when should she have a baby? Or does she even want a baby? And will that choice be taken away from her? I understand that these questions are necessary for this character, but a whole chapter?
A whole freaking chapter?
Of her thoughts? No, absolutely not. I think, I feel that there is a whole portion of that particular chapter that could have been completely changed to give us a little bit more redemption for Logan. It was a prime opportunity to give him a tad bit more redemption. Like, instead of her having these thoughts in her head, she should have vocalized them in a discussion form with Logan, because he's also thinking the same thing. There's a scene, like, in that particular moment where she's holding the baby and he's looking at her and he's considering her and he's considering something he never thought before, like, maybe I could have a baby with this person. And she's looking at him like, what the hell is this? Like, my biology tells me that I should want a baby, but do I really want one? Like, honestly, as a woman, can I make that decision? Can I make that choice? They should have had this conversation. Maybe when they got back into the car to leave, that's when it should have been brought up. It would have been a beautiful moment, and it would have also given us a little bit more romance and intimacy between them. Give us romance. I'm really tired of the dark romance trope where you think that you can give us the sex but no intimacy, no understanding as to why these characters are doing this. I think that's the case for this book. Like I get it where Maya, like it's biology, you know, alpha omega biology, but Maya hates them. She hates them. And Aries and Poe and Killian, they give her reasons to kind of soften a little bit, but Logan never does. Logan does not do that at all. Whenever she thinks that he's being not manipulative, he's being manipulative. So I just wish that there was more romance in there. Like what I said about the Spring Palace situation. They could have had an intimate moment. They could have had an honest discussion between the two of them. You know, like and that kind of would have made her start to believe this is the place that she's gonna stay. Like there's no changing that. There's no freedom here. Maybe I can make my own freedom. I think that would have been way better than what we got. Honestly. Another really big issue I had with this was, and I honestly don't think the secret drove the plot. Maya keeping the secret about Thane. Why couldn't she tell these men who are supposed to be her protectors? Ares would have protected her, so would have Poe. Killian, I think he would have at some point. Logan would have protected her because he's selfish. But Thane, she knew who Thane was. She had the gist of understanding what he was doing. But she knew who he was because he was her captor. I don't understand why she didn't tell these guys this. She had so many opportunities, and she didn't. And I think that her not telling them, her telling them, it wouldn't have changed the outcome. It would have been the same, honestly. It's just these guys would have known the truth, but nobody else. I don't think that if they knew the truth, I still don't think it would have mattered if they told anyone. Like, Logan could have gone to the king and been like, we know who the Inquisitor really is and what he's doing to Omegas. So, the king knows, because the king sanctioned it. You know, like, it wouldn't have changed anything. Oh my goodness. There's also the Royal Games. Okay, so this is the Claiming Games series. What is that? Because we get the Royal Games in the book. So what's the Claiming Games? Why didn't you just call it the Claiming Games? Because that would make sense, because that's the series that we're in. It just, the consistency is just, come on. Like, come on. Oh my goodness. And then there's also the fact that, like, Maya, she's trying to break up this pack. She's really trying to get them to just dissolve as a pack completely, because she wants them to feel the hurt that she feels. And she, you know, because she feels that they inflicted it. But if Logan ends up not being the king at some point in his life, if he ends up not heir to the throne, I mean, wouldn't that end up, or if he loses his designation altogether, wouldn't that mess up the entire pack in general? Like, wouldn't her protection be completely gone? And, I mean, getting to the end of the book now, still, you know, she wants her freedom, but when she was free, she was kidnapped. So staying with the pack it's not going to be like how it was with Thane. They're not going to do experiments on her, you know. There's just a better option. Like, there's an option between the two necessary evils, and one of them is a lot better, where these guys are starting to actually listen to her and apologize for how they treated her. Thane's not going to do that at all. Thane thinks he's justified in what he's doing in his science. So I was just like, girl, you're not making good choices here. You're making very irrational decisions for somebody who claims to be a rational person. So, yeah. The inconsistencies were so astounding to me. This is book 2. I think that's what makes me so frustrated, is that I give people, if you're doing a series and it's not your first series, and this is your first series, the first book is usually okay. I think that Bonds of Hate was okay. I think it was worth the read. But this book, your second book, should be 10 times better. And it's not. It's really not. And that's what's frustrating me the most. The inconsistencies. There shouldn't be these inconsistencies. If you have an editor and you're rereading what you've written millions of times, which is what you're supposed to do, then you should have caught these inconsistencies. They're too big to not catch them. First inconsistency is the blush incident, where Maya decides to use the blush to drug the guys. So she finds the blush in Logan's drawer, which is where we knew he had, because she found it before. She knew it was there, but this time she doesn't know it was there. And then she's like, okay, I have a plan now. I can use the blush to get them to tell me their secrets. It would, basically just take down their inhibitions. And then in the same breath, she's like, I've been thinking of this plan this whole entire time. I'm going to do this. And I've measured out the exact dosage for each person. Girl, how do you know what the calculations are for each dose of blush when you've only had blush 2 times and you didn't measure it yourself? You didn't look at it at all. You didn't have any calculations. You've never handled blush before. You weren't even using it or testing it out before this cockamamie plan. Like, you just came up with this. You pulled it out of your ass at this point. Like, come on, Maya. Like, that, inconsistent. Like, it would have made sense if she had this plan all along to use the blush in his drawer, but she just didn't know when she was going to be able to use it. Give us that. That's fine. Write that in there. But you didn't. You gave it to us in the same paragraph. You gave us one plan and then was like, oh, but I've had this plan this whole entire time. But you didn't, because you just said you didn't have this plan. Like, you just came up with it. It's so confusing. So she hates Logan, and her body betrays her because she's an omega. He's an alpha. Completely understand that. But there's this, like, inner turmoil that she's having when she's in that scene where she decides to assault him, where she ties him to the bed, and she's just, like, staring at him. She's just so attracted to him, and she just cannot keep her body in check when it comes to him. She finds herself moving automatically on autopilot towards his body, climbing on top of him and using him for her pleasure and for her hate. The thing that I think could have been written better for this scene, I understand that there's an inner turmoil and that she's warring in her head against her biology, but that wasn't written well. I think the way the author wrote it, by saying that her body was working on autopilot, even though she was screaming at herself not to do it, that's a cop-out. I think that's a very lazy way of writing it. You didn't give us any descriptive writing to tell us, what is this turmoil? Like, how is she warring with her biology and warring with her body in this way? We get that she's screaming in her head, but what is she screaming? You didn't give us anything. Like, I think it could have been written as, my suggestion would be, my omega side has one end of the rope, and my female human, like my female side, the one that's rational, has the other end of the rope, and we're tugging on it. And it's a constant tug of war. And then when my omega side finally tugs it hard enough, that's when my omega brain switches on, or that's when I feel like I can't break out of what my biology is telling me to do. It's like a constant war. Like, I get it. I understand where you're going with this scene, but I think there could have been more there. I think there could have been just a little bit more to give us an understanding of how Maya is struggling with herself. Like, she hates Logan, but if you hate him, why are you fucking him? Right? Like, give us more so that we understand that it's psychological. So Maya decides to film this, which I don't understand why she filmed it, because, girl, you're in the video. I don't get it. She filmed it. She took the security footage and she sent it to a journalist. Logan finds out because the king tells him. He goes to the security room where Ares is stationed because it's his job, and he basically tells him to pull up the video. So he pulls up the video himself, and then he confronts Ares. Like, how did somebody, or how would anybody get this video if it's, in here, when we're the only people that have the code for it? And Ares obviously doesn't understand what's going on, but this whole time, Poe is in the room too. Like, they're all together having this discussion, going back and forth. Poe, being in this discussion, he's asking questions, he's getting answers. Why, at the last minute in this scene, does he say, well, what was in the email? Aren't you in this conversation? Haven't you been here this whole time? Weren't you listening? What would make you ask such a dumbass question? It's almost like the author was writing the dialogue and forgot. Like, oh yeah, Poe did ask this already, or we already got the answer for this because we got the answer in the beginning of the scene when Logan confronted Ares, when he put the video on for them all to see it. We even panned over to Poe giving us a reaction. Like, I think he was like stone-faced or something. Like, was he not paying attention? Like, why did we get this dumbass question? Like, are you okay? What? So during the blush incident where Maya drugs the guys, she's in the room with Logan, basically helping him to the bed, and she's in her head thinking, don't talk about the blush, don't mention it. And in the same breath, with him like mumbling to himself on the bed, she's like, oh yeah, that blush, right? It really does a number on you. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm like, girl, are you serious? Oh my goodness. There's also a moment, I'm basically just listing off inconsistencies at this point, and they're not necessarily in order or like going towards the structure of the book itself. But the first time Maya tried blush, the next day she remembers everything. She thinks, she's in her head thinking, I remember everything. I'm ashamed of what I did, of my behavior. And then in the same breath, she's over here asking one of the guys, well, what are the effects of blush? Because, you know, when I took it, all I remember is that everything went fuzzy. Okay, I think that I've also used this before as an example, like the security room example. There's a lot of inconsistent conversations between these people. Like, besides the security thing, there was a conversation where the guys were acting like they didn't know that Maya was sleeping in Logan's bed the whole time, like every night, but they were just talking about it. So, jumping back to the beginning of the book, we end on a cliffhanger from book 1, right? But in book 1, there was like a bombing in the palace. So one of the wings was bombed. But book 2, I'm thinking, okay, since we started where we left off, we're going to hear about, you know, leftover debris or like chunks of plaster. We're going to hear the echoing remnants of like, you know, workers doing work on that part of the palace. Even just like a few mentions of it, like, oh, like look out for that tool on the floor, you know, something like that. We only got one little tiny mention about the palace bombing, and that was it. And I was like, what? And the way that the author wrote it, like wrote the scenes in the beginning of the book, it just it felt like it was a time jump. It felt like so much time went by, but then the characters were acting like time didn't go by. It's very confusing. I would challenge you to read it and to tell me your thoughts on that. This is a small thing, and I might be nitpicking at this point, but Darius was an alpha associated with the alphas from the bombing, and he was captured by Poe. Poe takes Maya down there, I think to the basement, where he's interrogating him. I guess he wants to like show her who they really are, like what they really do, and to see how she fits in with them, and also kind of sees that she needs a little bit of power. Like she needs to feel like she has some type of power in this dynamic. So, but Darius is sitting there gagged, tied to the chair. He's already been beaten. He's gagged. It says in the book that he has a dirty rag in his mouth, or, you know, something in his mouth. And then he asks us a question.
Out. I'm tired of the chair.
So I'm like, what? What is it? Which one is it? So that concludes my thoughts. Again, let me know if you have any of your own. Like, do you have a list of your own that I missed? I'm sure I probably have them highlighted and in my book, but I just didn't name them. But there are a lot more inconsistencies. These are just the ones that I caught that I thought were worth mentioning. So I give this 3 peppers. I think that there were definitely some sex scenes. There was kissing, there was tension. I think that it could have been better though. I just felt like the the spicy scenes were so closed door. Like, it was kind of anticlimactic when we got there. And I get it. Like, you know, this female character, Maya, she's so angry. And she has a war going on in her head between herself, her body, and her biology. So she's obviously interested and curious and sexually aroused by these alphas because that's in her biology. But I think that there are moments when these guys, I would say Aries, Poe, and Killian, they show her vulnerable sides to them, and they also show her affection. And it's not like they're not doing it to get something from her. They're doing it to show them who they really are, because, you know, they're like, we're all in this together now. We're all a pack. We need to, like, know who each other are, basically. Can we tolerate each other, you know, when there's no, like, intimacy or sex getting in the way? And Maya just always keeps pushing them away. Or she'll allow it, but at the same time, she'll also use it, like lock it away in her mind somewhere, that I know this deepest, darkest secret about you, and I'm going to use it for my revenge. And that part really frustrated me about her, because I understand that she's really upset and she hates where she is in her life right now, but where she is in her life isn't their fault. It's Logan's fault. I just think that her anger is so misplaced, and it was just really pissing me off. So my star rating for this one, I was going to make it 3 stars. But then something happened in the book more than once, and I decided to I downgraded my star rating, unfortunately, to 2 stars. And I never give my review on my platform for 2-star reviews or less, but I just felt like it was necessary. I think that I'm gonna start doing that, because this is an honest channel, and I want to be honest to you readers. I think you can form your own opinions. Everybody's an adult, or maybe not an adult, but, you know, we're all our own person. You can form your own opinions. But I gave this 2 stars. I thought the plot was decent enough to keep me intrigued and to keep me interested, especially because I came from book 1 and I was waiting for book 2. I was like, give me book 2. You left me on a cliffhanger. I need to know what's going to happen next. I think the downside for this is that there were so many errors, so many grammatical and punctuation errors, and there was also just writing structure was off. There were so many inconsistencies and so much lack of continuity. Like, we have the first book. You have a book Bible because you have the first book. I hope that the author has a book Bible. Use that information, those notes that you took from the first book, to move into the second book. I don't expect my editors to remember what happened in my first book. That's why I keep notes. I have a whole platform where I keep notes. It's my book Bible, because it's a series. You have to remember these things, and it's not easy to remember certain things. Just keep notes. Make it easier on yourself, so there won't be any lack of continuity and inconsistencies. We finally got there, you guys. We got there. My critiques, my thoughts. After all of that, I'm gonna say The Bonds of Pain by Nola Heart was disappointing. I hate saying that because I know how hard it is to write a book, but I think it could have been a better book. And it was just the lack of continuity, the inconsistencies, the grammatical and punctuation errors were just so many that I couldn't disregard them. And I honestly found myself editing the book. There was also, I didn't mention this before, but there was also repetition. There was a lot of repetition too in some of the scenes where, you know, I guess not repetition, more of just recapping things that literally just happened 2 seconds ago. It's just not necessary. It's fluff, and fluff is not necessary. Some readers prefer fluff. I don't. I think this is just too much fluff in this case. I also think that the plot was the saving grace. The plot is, she kept the plot. Thank you, Nola Heart. You kept the plot going, but I think that the characters missed the plot. Like, there was a scene when there were these moments where Maya would take blush, and I'm thinking, she takes this blush and every time she takes it, she feels uninhibited. She feels more sensual, more loose, more calm. You know, she feels better about herself and the life that she's in. Everything's like prettier and brighter and just softer. And, you know, I was like, if she takes this blush and she blames these guys for a decision that she did on her own, that's going to be less stars in my opinion. And she did. Every time she took it, she blamed them. And I'm like, but Maya, you took the drug yourself. Like, I understand that this is a revenge plot. This is a revenge-fueled story. But I think that the characters missed the plot on this. Like, they just missed the plot. Like, the anger that she has for a lot of these guys, like, well, I guess a lot of the anger that she has for these guys is so misplaced. I'm starting to believe that she's just angry with herself at this point and she's just projecting. But this was going to get 3 stars, but I downgraded it to 2. I think the 3 stars would have been generous even still. After all of this, I believe that I read book 1 and I thought it was a decent read. I couldn't wait for book 2. I think I also became invested because I wanted to know what was going to happen between all of these characters, especially when it came to the romance factor and it came to them having a relationship with Maya. Book 2 was a disappointment. I believe that it could have been written better. I also believe that it frustrated me. It really frustrated me to read this book. I actually had to take some time away from it and read something else that was actually better because I was yearning for just better writing. And that's what kills me about this story, is that there is some beautiful descriptive language that Nola Heart puts into this book. And I quoted it, like I put it out there in quotes. I highlighted it when I was reading it and I was like, well, this is beautiful. And then in the same sentence, the same paragraph, you give me an error. You give me an inconsistency. You just, it's almost like you lost the plot. And I'm very sorry for you. I'm very sorry that this book is the way that it is. I think the plot's great. I honestly would not recommend this book. I wouldn't recommend it at all. I would actually ask that the author go back and edit it, because if it was edited and the repetition was taken out and the errors were taken out and the inconsistencies and the continuity were just like redone to be taken out and fixed and altered, this book would have been great. It would have been great. I think the thing that I thought was missing in book 1, I found it in book 2, but then I got all the other things that came along with it. So my recommendation is that you don't read the claiming games. I wouldn't say don't read any of them. That's my recommendation going forward. But thank you so much for tuning into my review. Please continue to support indie authors with me. Please like and subscribe, and you can also share if you like. Download, use my videos for whatever you need to use them for in regards to bookish things. I cannot wait to show you my next review, but until then, thank you so much. Goodbye.